The silent power of detachment. Why ignoring everything makes you dangerous. There is a version of you that doesn't react anymore. No arguments, no explanations, no chasing, just silence. And strangely, that version of you is the most powerful, because in a world where everyone is emotional, loud, and reactive, the person who stays calm controls everything. This is the silent psychology of power, and once you understand it, you will never behave the same again. Part 1. Why reacting makes you weak. Most people think reacting is strength, speaking loudly, defending themselves, proving a point. But in reality, reaction is loss of control. Every time you react emotionally, you give someone else power over you. They control your mood, your thoughts, your behavior. Think about it. If someone can make you angry, they control you. If someone can make you jealous, they control you. But when you stop reacting, you break that control. That's why powerful people are calm, because they understand one thing: control over yourself is the highest level of power. Part 2. The art of detachment. Detachment is not about being cold. It's about being in control. It means you care, but not too much. You observe, but don't absorb. You listen, but don't react. Detachment is emotional discipline. For example, someone insults you. Normal person reacts immediately. Powerful person pauses, smiles, walks away. Why? Because they don't feel the need to prove anything. They don't need validation, and that makes them dangerous. Part 3. Why ignoring people is powerful. Ignoring people is misunderstood. People think it's rude, but in reality, it's selective focus. You don't ignore everyone. You ignore negativity, distractions, unnecessary drama, because your energy is limited, and powerful people protect their energy like a weapon. Here's the truth. The more you respond to everything, the weaker your focus becomes. But when you ignore what doesn't matter, you become unstoppable. Part 4. Silence is a strategy. Silence is not emptiness. It's strategy. When you stay silent, people reveal themselves. You gather information. You stay in control. Have you noticed? The loudest person in the room is usually the least respected, but the quiet one, everyone watches them. Why? Because silence creates mystery, and mystery creates power. Part 5. Stop seeking validation. One of the biggest weaknesses is the need to be seen, to be liked, to be approved. But powerful people don't seek validation. They validate themselves. They don't post to impress. They don't speak to prove. They act with purpose, because they understand. The moment you stop needing approval, you become free. Part 6. Build yourself in silence. While others are busy showing off, you should be building. Build your skills. Build your discipline. Build your mindset. Silently. No announcements. No validation. Because real growth doesn't need attention. And when results finally show, they speak louder than anything. Part 7. Success is quiet. Real success is not loud. It's not social media posts. It's not showing off. It's discipline, consistency, patience, done quietly over time. And one day, people will ask how you did it, but they won't see the silent work behind it. Part 8. The power of being unpredictable. There is something dangerous about a person who cannot be predicted. Most people are easy to read. You know when they'll react. You know what will trigger them. You know how they think, and that's why they are easy to control. But when you become unpredictable, everything changes. You don't react the way people expect. You don't respond immediately. You don't follow the usual patterns. And suddenly, people don't know how to deal with you. This creates psychological power, because humans feel uncomfortable when they can't predict behavior. So they start observing you more, respecting you more, even fearing you a little. But here's the key. Unpredictability is not chaos. It's controlled behavior. It's choosing when to speak, when to stay silent, when to act, and when to disappear. That control makes you powerful. Part 9. Protect your energy at all costs. Energy is your most valuable resource. More than money, more than time. Because without energy, you can't use anything else. But most people waste it daily. On arguments, on social media, on people who don't matter, and slowly, they become mentally weak, drained, lost. But powerful people do something different. They protect their energy. They avoid unnecessary conversations. They limit access to themselves. They stay away from negativity, not because they are rude, but because they are focused. Think about it. Every time you argue with someone, you lose energy. Every time you stress over something small, you lose energy. And over time, you have nothing left for your own growth. So if you want power, start protecting your energy, like your life depends on it, because it does. Part 10. Stop being available to everyone. Availability is a silent weakness. When you are always available, people stop valuing you. They assume you have nothing better to do. They take you for granted. But when you become selective, everything changes. You don't reply instantly. You don't say yes to everything. You don't give your time freely. And suddenly, your value increases. Because scarcity creates value. This is not manipulation. It's self-respect. You respect your time. You respect your focus. You respect your life. And when you respect yourself, others are forced to do the same. Part 11. The danger of over-explaining. Weak people explain too much. They justify their actions. They defend their decisions. They try to make everyone understand them. But powerful people, they don't explain because they understand something important. Not everyone deserves an explanation, and not everyone will understand you, even if you explain perfectly. So why waste energy? When you over-explain, you look unsure. You look like you need approval. But when you stay calm and say less, you appear confident, certain, in control. And that silent confidence is powerful. Part 12. Master the art of walking away. Walking away is one of the hardest things to do, because ego wants to stay. Ego wants to argue, to win, to prove a point. But wisdom walks away from useless arguments, from toxic people, from situations that don't bring growth, because not every battle is worth fighting. Sometimes, winning means leaving, and the strongest people are not the ones who fight everything, but the ones who choose what deserves their attention. So learn this skill. Walk away without anger, without drama, without explanation. Just leave and move forward. Part 13. Silent observation changes everything. Most people are too busy talking to notice what's really happening. But when you become silent, you start seeing things differently. You notice people's intentions, their behavior patterns, their hidden emotions. You see who is real and who is pretending. And this awareness gives you an advantage, because while others are distracted, you are learning, analyzing, understanding. And once you understand people, you can never be easily manipulated again. That's the power of observation. Part 14. Become internally strong. At the end of everything, power is internal, not external. It's not about money, not about status, not about attention. It's about your mind. If your mind is weak, everything breaks you. But if your mind is strong, nothing can. So build internal strength. Stay calm in chaos. Stay focused in distraction. Stay silent when needed, because the world is noisy. People are emotional. Situations are unpredictable. But if you remain stable, you become unstoppable. In the end, the real power is not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't prove. It doesn't chase. It simply exists. Calm, focused, unbothered. So become that person. The one who doesn't react. The one who doesn't chase. The one who builds in silence. Because in a world full of noise, the silent one always wins. At the end, you have two choices. Keep focusing on others and stay average. Or focus on yourself and become unstoppable. The truth is simple. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is responsible for your success. Only you. So stop waiting. Start building and become someone who doesn't need validation.